clips, headlines, and references being shared across the community, organized for quick browsing. Use it to spot patterns, pull links, and build your own research list. Qnotables.com. Browse the notables, verify the facts, stay informed. All reports can be found on Q Research or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here.
From the Q Research Board 0.5's January 12, 2025 0.5's Trump, I'm the one who saved NATO. President Trump is doubling down on his claim that he saved NATO, reminding reporters that European allies only started paying their promised 2% of GDP after he put them on notice. Trump says the alliance was going broke before his pressure campaign and that today's more capable NATO is the result of America finally demanding fair burden sharing instead of writing blank checks. Pope Leo condemns Islamist violence against Christians. Pope Leo has issued a blunt condemnation of Islamist violence targeting Christians in places like Nigeria, Bangladesh, and the Middle East. He warned that attacks on churches, kidnappings of clergy, and mob killings are not isolated incidents, but part of a wider pattern of persecution. Many believers say it is long overdue for global leaders to speak plainly about who is committing these crimes and why Christians are so often the victims. Massive lines in Calgary for Alberta independence petition. In Calgary, video shows huge lines of residents waiting to sign a petition for an Alberta independence referendum. Organizers say they expect to blow past the legally required signature threshold, reflecting deep anger over Ottawa's tax, energy, and immigration policies. The turnout signals that Western alienation is not just online chatter, but a real political movement in Canada's heartland. Bill Ackman donates $10,000 to ICE agent GoFundMe. Billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman has donated $10,000 to a GoFundMe supporting ICE agent Jonathan Ross, who shot and killed Renee Nicole Good during a confrontation in Minneapolis. Officials say Ross fired defensive shots after Good used her car as a weapon. Ackman says he believes in due process and wanted to help cover legal costs, even as Good's own fundraiser closed after raising over $1.5 million. Report: Pritzker cash at CIA-linked Bahamas Bank. New attention is turning to historic revelations about Castle Bank and Trust, a CIA-linked bank in the Bahamas used for covert operations in tax shelters in the 1960s and 70s. Reporting has previously noted that members of the billionaire Pritzker family, which now dominates Illinois politics, were among the bank's major clients. The story raises old but serious questions about how political dynasties used offshore structures while pushing higher taxes on everyone else. Iran regime forces use live fire on fleeing protesters. Human rights monitors report that Iran's security forces are firing live rounds at anti-regime protesters across multiple cities, killing hundreds in the last 2 weeks. In places like Malik Shahi and Fardis, witnesses describe machine gun fire, bodies in the streets, and hospitals under pressure as the regime tries to crush the uprising under an internet blackout. The crackdown shows a regime more afraid of its own people than of any foreign enemy. UK Prevent Video Game flags kids for questioning mass migration. In Britain, a government-funded Prevent video game called Pathways is under fire for warning teenagers they could be referred to anti-terror authorities if they question mass migration. The interactive tool, aimed at students 11 to 18, is part funded by the Home Office. Critics say it treats normal political concerns as red flags for extremism and conditions kids to fear speaking openly about immigration and national identity. Trump says he's interim leader of Venezuela. In a stunning claim, President Trump has told reporters he considers himself the interim leader of Venezuela until free elections can be held after the capture of Nicolas Maduro. The statement follows U.S. recognition of opposition figures and a major military operation against the regime. It is a clear signal that Washington intends to shape Venezuela's future direction rather than hand the country back to socialist elites. Operation Nightingale widens. 12 more charged in nursing diploma scam. Federal prosecutors have charged 12 more defendants in Phase 2 of Operation Nightingale, a nationwide scheme that sold thousands of fake nursing diplomas from Florida schools. Investigators say more than 7,600 bogus degrees helped unqualified applicants sit for licensing exams and enter hospitals and clinics. Authorities warn that every fraudulent diploma represents a risk to patient safety and say more prosecutions are coming. Kilauea volcano flares again in Hawaii. One of the world's most active volcanoes, Kilauea in Hawaii, has entered another eruptive episode, with low lava fountains and glowing vents inside the summit crater. The U.S. Geological Survey says the activity is currently contained within Hawaii Volcanoes National Park at an alert level of watch. Officials are monitoring gas and ash, but nearby communities are not yet under evacuation orders. DOJ criminal probe of Fed Chair Powell rattles markets. The Justice Department has subpoenaed the Federal Reserve and is threatening a criminal indictment of Chair Jerome Powell over aspects of the central bank's spending and conduct. Powell says he intends to stand firm and defend the Fed's independence, but the probe is already shaking investor confidence. This is the first time in modern history that a sitting Fed chair has faced a criminal investigation while still in office. Silver price spikes to $85 an ounce. Precious metals market saw a shock move as silver briefly spiked to $85 an ounce in thin early morning trading. Traders point to fears over central bank instability, surging government debt, and geopolitical chaos pushing investors into hard assets. If prices hold anywhere near this level, it will squeeze industrial users and punish anyone who mocked silver as a poor man's gold. Devolution theory fuels new debate over Trump's powers. Inside the MAGA movement, talk of devolution has resurfaced, with some commentators arguing that critical national security authority was quietly retained by Trump and loyal military officials even after Inauguration Day. Mainstream legal experts dismiss the claim, but the discussion shows the deep distrust of current institutions and the belief among many conservatives that key parts of the federal government no longer serve the people. MAGA base warns against buzzkills inside the movement. Grassroots activists are complaining about what they call MAGA buzzkills. Commentators on the right who undercut momentum with constant defeatism and purity tests. They argue that black pill messaging and circular firing squads do more damage than anything Democrats could dream of. For many, the message is simple: stop demoralizing the base and focus on beating the left. Ofcom launches probe into X over Grok's sexualized AI images. Britain's media regulator Ofcom has opened a formal investigation into Elon Musk's platform X after reports that its Grok AI tool was used to generate sexualized images of women and disturbing deepfakes involving minors. Under the UK's new Online Safety Act, X could face massive fines or even a ban if it is found to have failed basic duties to protect children and remove illegal content. The case is now a major test of how far governments will go in policing big tech's AI tools. President Trump versus Davos, delivering terms of surrender to the global elites. President Trump is again setting himself up as the chief opponent of the Davos global elite, promising to confront the World Economic Forum's agenda head-on. In speeches and social posts, he says unelected bankers, corporate executives, and green ideologues have stolen sovereignty from ordinary citizens. His supporters call it a fight between democratic self-government and a technocratic class that never faces the voters. Trillions in housing and land fraud still lurking. Financial analysts and whistleblowers are warning that the United States has barely scratched the surface of fraud in housing, land deals, and mortgage securities. They point to the 2008 crisis as proof that bundled, opaque debt instruments can hide massive corruption for years. The fear is that, once again, ordinary homeowners and renters will pay the price when the next wave of hidden losses finally comes due. Over 30 Obama-era officials reportedly subpoenaed. Capitol Hill sources say more than 30 Obama-era officials, including John Brennan, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, and Lisa Page, have been hit with subpoenas in new congressional and grand jury probes. Investigators are looking at alleged abuses of power during Crossfire Hurricane, FISA surveillance, and the early Russia collusion narrative. For years, conservatives have demanded accountability. This could be the first real step in that direction. Data Republican account gains influence with hard numbers. On X, the Data Republican account has become a go-to source for polling, turnout, and trend charts that cut through media spin. The account's posts are now routinely cited by conservative commentators who are tired of vague narratives and want raw numbers on immigration, crime, and elections. The rise of this kind of grassroots data work shows how much the base wants facts they can verify, not talking points from legacy outlets. Democrat councilwoman caught on video screaming, "Fuss, ICE." In Salisbury, Maryland, Democrat City Councilwoman Michelle Gregory was recorded shouting, "Fuss, ICE, fuss, Trump, fuss, the cult, and if you have a problem with that, fuss you're not welcome here." The remarks are sparking outrage from law enforcement supporters who say it exposes the raw hatred many local officials have for federal agents just doing their jobs. Critics argue that rhetoric like this encourages harassment and violence against officers. Reform UK and Farage make special announcement as party surges. Reform UK held a live special announcement event with Nigel Farage and senior figures unveiling new recruits and policy priorities for 2026. The right-of-centre party is now surging in polls, fueled by voter anger over mass migration, rising crime, and economic decline under the main parties. With high-profile defections like former Finance Minister Nadim Zahawi, Reform is positioning itself as the real opposition to a tired political class.
At shop.isawaya.com, everything you buy supports Qnotables, the place where people talk freely no matter what. Check out our Qn Honey Pot, a jar of yummy honey that's as strong as your voice. Put it on toaster and tea. It's not just honey, it's freedom in every bite. Then there's Qn Butter, a smooth handmade skin cream that makes you feel good while you fight for what's right. Awesome wood and pieces for display only. Hang them up or set them out. They're for showing off Qn's tough spirit. Want to help even more? Get a proto membership. So go to shop.isawaya.com now and grab some goodies. Help Qnotables keep free speech alive, and let's keep the ideas flowing loud and free.
All reports can be found on Q Research or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open-source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here.
From the Q Research Boards, January 12, 2025, Doomsday. E-6B aircraft spotted on patrol over U.S. coasts. Flight tracking watchers have reported multiple E-6B Mercury aircraft flying patrol patterns over the Gulf of Mexico and the southeastern seaboard. The Navy uses these so-called Doomsday planes as airborne command posts to maintain nuclear command and control if ground facilities are ever disabled. The patrols come just days after the Pentagon awarded a new contract to upgrade the E-6B's communication systems, underscoring how seriously the U.S. is taking strategic readiness right now. Anti-ICE protests spill into the streets of New York City. In New York City, anti-ICE demonstrators flooded the streets, with live streams showing crowds marching and chanting against immigration enforcement. The protest follows the highly publicized shooting of Renee Good during a confrontation with ICE in Minneapolis, a case federal officials say involved a vehicle being used as a weapon. Police in New York monitored the march closely as activists tried to turn anger over immigration policy into pressure on the Trump administration's enforcement agenda. NATO weighs Arctic buildup as Trump presses Greenland issue. NATO allies are openly discussing a military buildup in the Arctic as President Trump keeps pushing for stronger U.S. control over Greenland. European defense ministers are floating an Arctic Sentry-style mission to increase patrols, exercises, and surveillance in the high north, partly to calm tensions with Denmark and Greenland over Trump's annexation talk. At the same time, leaders in Europe insist Greenland's future must be decided by its people, not by Washington, Moscow, or Beijing. AOC and top Democrats suddenly talk tough on anti-Semitism. In a striking shift, far-left Democrats who have spent years attacking Israel are suddenly condemning open anti-Semitism on the streets. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez blasted pro-Hamas demonstrators who targeted a Jewish neighborhood, calling their actions disgusting and anti-Semitic. Commentators on the right see this as political damage control after months of radical rhetoric, not a true change of heart, but it shows party leaders realize the backlash against anti-Semitism is growing. Israel and Germany sign new cyber defense pact. Israel and Germany have signed a new security pact to deepen cooperation on cyber defense and counterterrorism. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the agreement locks in joint efforts to confront threats from Iran and its proxies, including Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. Berlin's interior minister joined Netanyahu in Jerusalem, signaling that at least some European governments still see a strong partnership with Israel as essential for their own security. Iran threatens massive missile barrage if U.S. strikes. As protests rock Iran, regime officials are warning that any U.S. military strike will trigger retaliation against Israel and American bases in the region. One widely shared claim circulating online talks about 500 Khyber ballistic missiles being readied for launch at Israeli targets, though that number has not been independently verified. What is clear is that Tehran is openly threatening to widen the conflict if Washington intervenes on behalf of demonstrators who have already faced hundreds of deaths in the streets. Viral Iranian dissident calls out Western left. A viral clip of an Iranian woman speaking out against the regime is drawing attention not just to Tehran's brutality, but also to Western activists who make excuses for it. She slams left-wing commentators for ignoring executions, torture, and the killing of protesters while obsessing over their own ideological narratives. Her message is simple. If you claim to stand for human rights, you can't give a free pass to a regime that guns down its own people in the streets. MEK, ex-terror group now exiled opposition to Tehran. The MEK, or People's Mojahedin Organization of Iran, is back in the news as protests grow inside the country. Once listed as a terrorist organization by the US and Europe for attacks in Iran, the group was formally delisted after it renounced violence and shut down its armed base in Iraq. Today, MEK leaders operate in exile and lobby Western governments as a secular opposition to the mullahs, but even many anti-regime Iranians remain deeply skeptical of their history and tactics. Say his name. Harold Harper, 64, murdered while gardening. In Florida, 64-year-old Harold Harper was shot in the back of the head while gardening in his own yard, in what police describe as a random act of violence. Officers say Harper was killed on the spot, and 29-year-old Isaac Toy has been arrested and denied bond on a murder charge. Neighbors and family members are demanding justice and asking how a man can be killed doing yard work in broad daylight. Yet another sign of how fragile public safety has become in many communities. Drink whole milk? Hashtag campaign boosts America's dairy. A cheeky new social media push tagged. Chuck Drink Whole Milk is encouraging Americans to choose real dairy over ultra-processed alternatives. Dairy brands and meme accounts alike are sharing graphics, jokes, and even merch built around the slogan Drink Whole Milk, calling it Nature's Powerhouse. Supporters say it's a lighthearted way to push back against fake food culture and remind people that traditional, nutrient-dense foods helped build strong American families for generations. Washington Monument lit as world's tallest birthday candle. The Washington Monument has been transformed into what organizers call the world's tallest birthday candle to kick off America's 250th birthday celebrations. Under President Trump's Freedom 250 initiative, a massive light and projection show turned the obelisk into a glowing centerpiece on New Year's Eve in Washington, D.C. Supporters say the year-long celebration is meant to refocus the country on its founding ideals and remind people that America is still worth celebrating. In 10 days, justice will be restored. Miller teases coming move. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller set social media on fire with a cryptic post. In 10 days, justice will be restored, fully and absolutely. The comment comes as the administration ramps up legal and political pressure on institutions like the Federal Reserve, and as new investigations into past abuses are announced. For now, it's a countdown without details, but it's being read by Trump supporters as a promise that major accountability is just days away. DOJ launches criminal probe into Fed Chair Jerome Powell. In an unprecedented move, the Justice Department has opened a criminal investigation into Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell over a multi-billion-dollar renovation of the Fed's headquarters and his past testimony to Congress. Prosecutors have issued grand jury subpoenas, and Powell says he's even been threatened with indictment, calling the probe a political attack aimed at bullying the Fed into cutting interest rates. Markets are rattled, gold is spiking, and critics warn this clash could shatter what's left of the central bank's independence. Trump pushes back on Iran. Protester killings, President Trump addressed the killing of anti-regime Iranian protesters, calling the violence unacceptable and saying the U.S. military is examining strong options to respond. Trump stressed that any nation that slaughters its own people will face consequences and that a decision on potential U.S. actions is coming soon. He also reiterated support for democratic movements opposed to Tehran's clerical regime. Trump again raises Greenland acquisition idea. President Trump reiterated his long-standing interest in Greenland, saying again that if the U.S. doesn't take action, China or Russia will. While no formal offer is on the table, his comments spotlight Arctic strategic competition and the importance of northern defense, even as NATO partners question how far the U.S. should pursue territorial expansion. Trump said allies like NATO must show they're there for America before expecting full U.S. support in return. Trump portrait released by official campaign. The official presidential portrait of Donald J. Trump has been released by his team, featuring the president in a dignified pose against a backdrop of the American flag. The image is now being shared widely across federal buildings and conservative platforms, marking a symbolic moment for Trump's ongoing political influence even outside the White House. Supporters see it as a tribute to his achievements and leadership style. Treasury investigates funding behind anti-ICE riots. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has confirmed the U.S. Treasury is actively tracing the financiers and funders behind anti-ICE protests that turned violent in several cities. Officials say suspicious flows of money through nonprofits, PACs, and overseas accounts are being scrutinized as part of an effort to hold backers accountable. The effort is tying financial crime enforcement to national security in a way not seen before. Iran revolution continues. Live coverage day. Nun 15. Pro-freedom demonstrations in Iran have entered their 15th day amid widespread crackdowns, communications blackouts, and violent clashes between protesters and security forces. Exiled activists broadcast live coverage from within the country, showing defiance amid suppression, while state media attempts to spin events as normal. The courage of ordinary Iranians keeps global attention focused on Tehran's brutal response. Starlink users in Iran try workarounds amid blackouts. Iranians attempting to bypass Tehran's internet shutdown are turning to Starlink satellite internet, with some reporting success by enabling exclusive positioning and debug data options. The regime has tried to jam satellite signals, but determined users say strategic app settings can help restore limited service. This tech workaround has become a crucial lifeline for anti-regime activists trying to document abuses and communicate with the world. 1.5 raised for family of ICE shooting victim. Fundraising for the family of Renee Nicole Good, who was killed in a confrontation with federal agents in Minneapolis, has topped $1.5 million. Organizers say they will place the funds in a trust for the widow and children, a move meant to ensure long-term financial security. The large public response reflects deep national divisions over immigration enforcement and federal law enforcement tactics. U-Haul truck plows into crowd at Los Angeles protest. A U-Haul truck drove into a crowd of demonstrators in Los Angeles during protests tied to events in Iran and local grievances, injuring multiple people. Police have made arrests and are investigating whether the driver acted intentionally. The collision is raising fresh concerns about the safety of large protests that mix diverse causes and attract wide-ranging participants. Minneapolis protester attacked outside federal building. In Minnesota, a protester named Nick Sortor was reportedly attacked by a violent crowd outside the Bishop Henry Whipple Federal Building in Minneapolis during demonstrations over federal enforcement actions. Video and police reports describe an escalated confrontation that left Sortor injured and sparked renewed calls for law and order in the city. Officials say charges are pending as the investigation continues. SpaceX launches. Twilight mission from Kennedy. NASA's Kennedy Space Center marked the successful launch of SpaceX's Twilight mission, carrying multiple payloads for scientific research and communications upgrades. The mission, part of ongoing U.S. leadership in space, points to increased collaboration between public agencies and private aerospace firms. Engineers say data from Twilight will help unlock new capabilities for future deep space exploration. Shakhtar. Border Patrol arrests illegal immigrants at bus stations in Minneapolis. U.S. Border Patrol agents have begun arresting illegal immigrants at bus stations in Minneapolis as part of a targeted enforcement operation. Officials say they are focusing on individuals with criminal records or recent illegal entry orders, detaining and processing them accordingly. The move reflects intensified federal efforts to enforce immigration law even amid local political resistance. Mexico oil shipment arrives in Cuba, raising U.S. tensions. A shipment of Mexican oil has arrived in Cuba, boosting Havana's dwindling energy supplies and fueling tensions with the United States. Washington has repeatedly warned that energy trade with the Castro regime props up authoritarian control in the Caribbean. The latest delivery is expected to ease short-term shortages, but is likely to attract new U.S. diplomatic protests. Rolling Stone editor subpoenaed after doxing Delta Force commander. A contributing editor at Rolling Stone magazine has been subpoenaed by federal authorities after publishing the name and photo of a Delta Force commander, raising national security concerns. Authorities say the exposure could endanger special operations troops and compromise missions. Legal experts note this could have implications for press protections and operational security going forward. Border Patrol says Americans vote for mass deportation. Citing recent survey data, Border Patrol leadership says a majority of Americans now support mass deportation of people in the country illegally. The agency says this shift reflects growing public concern over border security and illegal immigration's impact on local resources and public safety. Lawmakers on both sides are preparing policy responses as the debate intensifies ahead of elections.
Every voice matters. The power of free speech is more important than ever. Imagine a place where you can share your thoughts freely, explore new ideas, and engage in meaningful conversations anonymously. With online anonymity, you can express yourself without fear of judgment. It's about freedom, creativity, and connection. Join the conversation that matters. Embrace your voice. Celebrate your freedom. Visit 8kun.top today. That's 8kun.top.
That's all for now. Stay alert, stay informed, and never hand your thinking over to anyone on a screen, including me. God bless you, God bless our troops,